So hi guys, welcome so much to my channel. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today we are going to address a very important issue, and it is actually one of the factors that you can address to protect your marriage from breakups, from divorce. And this is addressing the mental issues or the mental baggage that you had before you come to marriage. You come prepared as a whole person who have addressed their own issues as you come. And in here I'm going to be very specific because this channel is about mental health, so we are going to talk about the mental issues. So with me here is Dr. Beatrice, a counseling psychologist, and we are going to address this issue with her. So Dr. Beatrice, to start us off, how would you quantify the problem of coming into marriage with unresolved mental issues? How would you quantify it? How big of a problem is it to a marriage?
I would say it's actually a whole problem. It's about, if it's about quantifying, it is actually the one most important problem that is destabilizing marriages. Because if someone has grown in a dysfunctional family, they may transfer that dysfunctionality into their own family.
Yes.
So we all come into marriage carrying different baggages, which if they are not dealt with, they will be transferred into the marriage.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it is such a big problem, and you know, you have put it that it is the single most important issue.
Yes.
I had shared the same somewhere. I was telling people going for counseling, and we are going to talk about that shortly, to address this mental baggage that you had before you came to marriage.
Yes.
It could be the single most important intervention you are going to take for the sake of your marriage.
Yes.
And so I want us to narrow even more and go to the specific instances or the specific incidences that happen in marriages, the kind of things that happen in marriages that show that this person, they have unresolved issues from their past, either whether they were being brought up or even shortly before they got married. What are these specific instances? Like for me, there is one I can tell. It's when you're expecting, or maybe you were abused, physically abused by your parent. Yes. And now you are looking at your partner and thinking, and in fact, you are looking at him and seeing the face of your parent. Yes. That is one of the incidences or the instances. Yes. Which other can you tell us about?
Okay, you know, when a child is growing up, especially the first few months after birth, we talk about 0 to 1.5 years. That is where a child learns how to trust or to mistrust. Because we talk about the stages of life. That stage, depending on how a child is handled, this is when a child needs a lot of nurturing. But in the opposite, there are some parents who neglect their children at that age. So you find some who even refuse to breastfeed the child. That child is not held, so they don't develop a bond with the family. And the question that a child is asking at that age is, can I trust the world? And so if they are neglected, if they are abandoned, what this significant parent is telling the child is that the world is not to be trusted. So from very early, a child learns to build a fence around themselves, to barricade themselves, because they need to protect themselves from this world that cannot be trusted. And so this child grows up with a lot of mistrust. And so even later in life, when they get into marriage, it becomes very hard for them to trust even the partner. And so this is the person who, even when the partner is showing them love, they're wondering, what do you want from me? They cannot trust someone to love them because they feel unloved. They feel that they don't matter because there was this parent who should have taken care of them, but they did not. So they develop low self-esteem. They develop feelings of abandonment. And so when they take that into marriage, then there are issues of mistrust, such that even these are people who will be suspecting that my husband is doing this or my wife is doing this without any evidence, because from very early they were taught that the world is not to be trusted. So the issue of trust, it starts from very early. And when it is carried into marriage, it becomes a hindrance to the health of that marriage. Yes.
So that's a very important issue.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think about what I had mentioned earlier, about where maybe you saw, sometimes it's not even you who was abused by the parent. Sometimes you saw your father abusing your mother.
Yes.
And then you come into the marriage with the mentality that men, they usually abuse their they can take advantage, they can abuse their wives.
Yes.
And so you are looking at your husband and seeing that this is a potential, actually this is an abuser.
Yes.
Perhaps he has only lacked an opportunity to do it. And I believe that is also another issue. And so even from my own experience, my own marriage, and also from interacting with other people,
Yes.
I know this is an important issue whereby you are bringing expectations. I'm expecting that this man or this woman may treat me in a certain way. And then if they, sometimes they won't even do it, but you have already prejudged them.
Yes.
So I think that is also another issue whereby people, they are revenging for their fathers, for their mothers, using their partner who is in the house.
Yes.
So that is a very important issue also.
Yes.
And also, I'm trying to think about cases where people, the way what you grow up seeing, like what you grow up, the other day we were talking about this internalized working model.
Yes,
I
yes.
don't want to use these heavy terms because of our viewers who may not be familiar with them, but it's just the way you saw things happening in the past, and you thought this is the way they are supposed to be, and you are not seeing anything wrong with it. So this is not even about the partner being abusive or anything, and you are seeing it's wrong, but now you grow up knowing they abuse. This is a person who grows up knowing that this is the way things are. It is kind of a rule, a mental rule that was formed. Maybe you can also address that also as well.
Yes, I think what you're saying is that the things we see, because even some of the problems that we people have in their marriage is actually a learned behavior that they learned, as you're correctly putting it, that this is how things are done. That when I get annoyed, I slap someone. When I'm not, when my father is annoyed, he sends everyone out of the house. So you grow up thinking that is the order of things, and so you may transfer the same to the marriage. Maybe for the man, he may transfer the same to the marriage, doing the same things that the father was doing. And if it is the wife who grew up seeing that kind of life, they may grow up and say to themselves, this will never happen to me. And so you have what we call the transference. You are looking at your husband and you're seeing your father in that man. And you're saying that now, because I'm a big girl, I will not allow this man to do this to me. And so you fight even battles that are not there. So the husband now becomes a victim of battles that he may not be aware of. So you find that someone is actually fighting their father through the husband. Or someone is fighting the wife, is fighting the mother or even a stepmother through the wife. Sometimes the wife will be wondering, what is all this about? I mean, what I have done is such a small thing, and yet he has reacted so violently because you have triggered a memory in that person. So these things that we transfer into our marriages are the ones that sometimes, destabilize the marriage. We say that life is transactional. People transact. And so when you are growing up as a child, the way you are transacting with your mother, maybe your mother was very authoritative, or your father was a dictator. And so you'd say, I have said this, I don't need to be questioned. And so when you grow up, maybe your husband, if he raises a voice a little, then you think, oh, he wants to talk to me the way my father used to talk to me. And so you rebel like a child. You see? So we talk about a child-parent relationship. You are the wife, yes, but you react to him the way you would have reacted if you were a child. So it's like you are transferring what was happening in your family to the marriage, but now because you are big, you are now fighting. So this person may not understand, why is this person reacting like this? And that is why it is important for people to actually, have what we call self-awareness. So that the family that I came from, this is what I used to see. So that when you are reacting in a certain way, maybe to your partner, you can quietly tell yourself, no, I don't need to do this. This is my husband, this is not my father. You have to engage in what we call self-talk, so that you do a self-regulation. But that will only come from self-awareness.
And you have said something, and it has reminded me a very interesting story that I watched some time back. When you are saying the way, like, a wife responds to a man as if she is beating up, or she is responding to her father.
Yeah.
There is a woman who was confessing and saying the kind of things that she would do to the husband, and the husband was also saying what he would watch, and he was putting it this way: nilikuwa naona shetani zimeamka, like he would really feel that the wife has some demons in her. He was convinced he has some demons that are working in her head, and it is because the wife had some issues that she came carrying. So she is trying to revenge against the man, because according to her, anyone in a trouser, just like that father who was like this. And also, I'm trying to think, sometimes it's not even something negative. It's expectations that you bring, because that is what you saw happening at your place when you are growing up.
Yes.
Like, for instance, you may grow up knowing that a wife is supposed to wake up, like this is what you would see in your mother. Our mothers those days,
Yes.
they would wake up at 3 to milk the cows.
Yes.
You remember? And then here is your wife. She wants to sleep all the way to 7, and your mom would wake up at 3. And now you come thinking that is the way a wife is supposed to be.
Yes.
That is also another issue.
Yes.
Because do you know it is a mentality that you have?
Yes.
It is a mentality.
Yes.
And you have told us something, and we also need to address this. And this is actually the essence of what we are talking about here, that behavior is learned.
Yes.
But it can also be unlearned.
Yes, exactly.
And so tell us about how people are supposed to walk through therapy. And sometimes, as you are telling us earlier, there are some not hidden issue as such, but there are some issues that are within us, in our unconscious. We don't know that they are there.
Yes.
And this is where we are supposed to go for therapy before marriage, so that in the help of a counseling psychologist like you are, they can help us dig them out.
Yes.
Tell us about that, why people should take that step before they get into marriage.
Yes, there is a topic I like to talk about, which is called self-mastery. And when you talk about self-mastery, we are just talking about, who am I? Where did I come from? You are saying, this is my name. I come from a single parent family. My father left us when I was this age. So you are trying to understand yourself, so that even as you transport yourself into a marriage system, you know exactly what you are taking there. And so you are also asking yourself, where am I going? If I grew up in a dysfunctional family, do I have to raise a dysfunctional family myself? Or can I, deal with these issues that I went through, which may pop up in my marriage and destabilize my marriage? That is self-awareness. And like you have correctly put it, some of the issues, like someone who was abandoned, maybe someone who grew up in a family where the father may have walked out of their lives. When this person gets into marriage, unless they become self-aware, they grow up feeling that it is okay for a father to abandon the family. And so even when they get married, they will be expecting that one day the husband will just walk away. And so even the things they do will be to push the man away, because what they have internalized is that abandonment happens, and so it will happen to me anyway, because it happened to my
no matter
mother.
what I do.
Yes. So everything they do is about just pushing the man away, because the mind will always try to justify what you have internalized. That abandonment is it happened to you, and so it can happen even in this marriage. And so the husband will do many things, but they'll never appreciate, because at the end of the day they are saying, after all, he will walk away. Abandonment. And so it is important for us to actually have self-awareness, and also to remind ourselves when we are reacting in a certain way in our marriage. We need to remind ourselves, why am I doing this? Where did I learn this from? Where did I see this? Because I tell people, even in marriage, sometimes when you speak, if you are listening to yourself, you can actually hear your father speaking through you. You hear your father commanding your wife. You hear your father commanding your children, or even abusing your wife. And if you have self-awareness, you'll say, wait a minute, did I just say this? This is exactly how my father used to behave. And if I continue doing like this, because we say that choices have consequences.
Yes.
So if you choose to behave the same way that your father used to behave, then you expect your marriage to end up the same way the marriage of your father ended up. Was it a happy marriage? Then choose the things that your father did to make the marriage happy. If beating your mother made the marriage happy, then for God's sake, go ahead and beat your wife. If that made the marriage happy. But if it wasn't the marriage, if it made the wife to run away, if it made the marriage to break down, then you need to ask yourself, if I continue doing like this, this is what I expect.
Yeah.
And so you become the weakest part of that chain. Because if you don't become the weak part of that chain, your own son will continue to behave like that. And there are people who argue that this family, they are cursed. They never get married. The daughters of this family, they never get married. Even when they get married, they don't stay in marriage. Sometimes it is nothing to do with a curse. It's just a learned behavior. Because if you learned to be, if your mother was rude to your father, and she was not, she was not submissive to the husband. And I'm not talking about the submission of where you lose yourself in the marriage. I'm talking about the normal way of behaving like a woman and having feminine qualities in the marriage. If you saw your mother being rude to your father, that is something you have learned. It may not be in your genes. It is, if you are cut like this, your blood will not ooze rudeness. It is just something that you have learned, so you can unlearn. And so if you learn something and then you practice it in your marriage, it may end up destroying your marriage. If your children again observe the same, then it becomes a vicious cycle. And people say it's a curse. It is in their genes. Nothing. It's just learned behavior.
And when you are saying that, I'm remembering that people often say, watoto wa single mother, they also end up being single mothers.
Yeah.
People tend to say that. I'm not saying entirely this is the reason, but it could be they got to the marriage and practice the same things that their mother was practicing before they parted with the father. So this is actually a vicious cycle, that, like you said. And also, so I wanted us to emphasize to our viewers on why it is important, because marriage is a lifelong institution, and in my view, if you have mental health baggage, that marriage will most likely end up in a crisis. And a crisis is why you can even have violence in the house. There will be violence, and it is because you have unresolved issues. So, Dr. Beatrice, you are a counseling psychologist, and maybe you can emphasize to our viewers on why it is important before you get into marriage, before you commit yourself into marriage. I know you are in love. If you are about to do a wedding, you are in love. But before you do that, because you have this person for the entire life until maybe death do you part, that will take time to go through counseling sessions, and not just to be told marriage should be handled like this or the other, but also to be taken through therapy, mental therapy.
I have seen people who do what they call premarital counseling. But whatever it is that they are calling premarital counseling, I have no name for it. Because it is nothing professional. It's just about telling girls what they should do to make the man happy, to forget themselves, just to be good wives. But in a professional session, because I do conduct professional counseling for premarital couples, it is about digging the personality of this person. And you're not telling them that because you are so different, then you don't need to get married. You just want to point out to them that this is the person that you're marrying. And this is how this other person is. So you need to be aware of these differences. You need to be aware of these experiences so that they don't come to haunt your marriage. Because the moment you mention an experience, you have pulled it from the subconscious. You pull it to what we call the working memory. And when you pull something into the working memory, and you do that just by acknowledging that I went through a traumatic experience. It may have been in the subconscious, but now you have brought it to the working memory, meaning that you are now fully aware. So if you find yourself behaving in a way that is being driven by that traumatic experience, you can quickly correct yourself and say, it's because of what I went through. So you become aware. And of course, you can go for counseling to deal with those issues that you may bring into the marriage as a baggage. So we are saying that when people go for premarital counseling, it is to make each other aware of the experiences. Who is this person? Who is this Jennifer? Where was she born? What experiences did she go through? Because when you are aware of them, then you know that they may come to destabilize the marriage. And so, but even for me, I have been married for the last 30 years. And I have to keep reminding myself, this is my husband. This is not my father. Because sometimes we expect what our fathers did not give us, that our husbands should give us. So you expect your husband to be the one to affirm you, because maybe your father never affirmed you. Even when you became number one, anakwambia, hiyo si mbaya sana. And imagine you are number one in a whole out of 200. Anakwambia, hiyo si mbaya sana. You see, that is not an affirmation. So you grow up with so many gaps. And so you come into marriage expecting now the husband to fill those gaps. So when you don't get affirmation, then you start feeling bad and you start acting out. You see, you start behaving like a child because you want your husband to behave like your father. So you have to keep reminding yourself, this is not my father. This is my husband. And that is why today, in our counseling sessions, we are teaching people to reparent themselves. There's a concept we are calling reparenting, meaning that you now start bringing yourself up. You become your own parent. What you'd have expected your mother to give you, you give it yourself. If you're a person who grew up without affirmation, when you do something and you feel, this is good, you pat yourself on the back and say, Beatrice, well done. Exactly. You see, you now start growing your own confidence. It's like you are now growing an organ in your body that never grew because it was not nurtured by your parent. So you reparent yourself. So in premarital counseling, we need to be aware of these childhood wounds. We call them childhood wounds because these are the ones that we expect our husband to give us the affirmation. We expect our husband to pat us on the back. We expect our husband not to abandon us. We place so many expectations on them, and yet this is just your husband, the father of your children. He also has his own needs. And then there is also the husband. Again, they expect you to become the mother because maybe the mother was emotionally absent. The mother never nurtured him. So he expects that everything he does, you must say, well done. If you don't say, he sulks. If you don't affirm him, he sulks. Because he's expecting those gaps. We grew up with so many gaps. So he's expecting you to become the mother. He needs to remind himself, this is my wife, not my mother. Because you cannot become a mother to your husband. And your husband cannot become your father. So you need to be aware of your own wounds. And then information is everywhere. How do you nurse those wounds? Is it mother wounds? Is it father wounds? Information is everywhere of how we can nurse those wounds so that we come into marriage as whole persons.
Whole persons.
Yes.
We need to take note of that.
Yes.
And you remind me that the Bible says that two shall come together and become one.
Yes.
Not two halves. Two. They are two because they are whole.
Yes.
So you are supposed to be whole, not a half, and then you join with the other half so that you can become one. It is two.
Yes.
So people should ensure that before they get into marriage, they are whole.
Yes.
Mentally and everywhere, and especially mentally in this case.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Dr. Beatrice. Thank you so much for the much that you have taught us.
Yeah.
And I believe that now our viewers, they know the importance of taking time before getting into marriage to deal with their past, mentally speaking. We are happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And our viewer, I need to tell you that the lady who did my hair, I want you to look at it. If you like the hair, she's called Stella. I'll indicate her number somewhere. Check it below the screen. She does a good job. She did my hair and my makeup. And if you want her to do your hair, she will come, or even the makeup, she'll come to where you are. She's mobile. She'll come to where you are. And her rates are very affordable. I'll put her number there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Beatrice. Ubarikiwe zaidi. We want to do this even more.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, our viewers. Thank you so much.
Asante.